What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So since the PlayStation 5 released, a lot of us have been wondering, when will we be able to upgrade the storage inside of the system using that NVMe slot? Well, finally, we have Sony now rolling out updates, enabling that slot, and they even gave us a bunch of information as to which drives we can use in the system. We'll go over that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about an Xbox first-party game that is being removed from Game Pass because it's actually being delisted completely. This had a lot of people talking yesterday, but to be honest, it's nothing really new in the genre, and we're going to be talking about a big update that is heading to new Pokemon Snap. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with AEW and their new wrestling game. Now, they announced this officially at the end of last year after we had a bunch of rumors that were starting to make the rounds online, and they're doing it in collaboration with Ukes, who had just left the WWE 2K franchise there. And it looks like we have a very broad window now as to when this game could be coming out, and it's a little sooner than I thought. We can head over here, this on Game Rant, citing an interview between Kenny Omega and Wrestling Observer Radio Show, saying hopefully we can get it out by next year. However, we are unable to commit to a solid release date just in case. And if it comes out next year in 2022, it'd be a 2-year turnaround from when they first announced it, which it's pretty clear was in very early development there. I'd rather them make sure the game is good, like, before it comes out. I don't know, that seems like they're kind of rushing it there, but I mean, they'd have to show it off before then, so they'd get feedback either way then. But they have showed some stuff around this game, some new character model scans and stuff that they had in a video earlier this year. Really, I'm more interested in the gameplay itself because I still play the older wrestling games, like from the GameCube and the PS2 days, and they're still a lot of fun. More fun, I would say, than some of these more recent WWE 2K games, which we'll see what they put out this year. But like, as long as AEW can kind of go back to that old school kind of gameplay mentality with those games and have just okay visuals, because they're probably not going to put out a game that looks better than WWE 2K in that franchise, I'd be all right. Like I said, for wrestling games like these, to me, it comes down to the gameplay over everything else. Also, we've had a ton of games come out over the last few weeks here, and there was one that I was concerned might get overlooked a bit, but it appears that Death's Door has had a pretty good first week on the market. We can head over here on Twitter, where they say over 100,000 players have stepped through Death's Door in the first week. Thank you so much for the support and love for our little crow. This is from Acid Nerve, published by Devolver Digital, and if you missed this game, I would certainly check it out. It's actually a really fun top-down isometric style action-adventure game, and I had a chance to sit down and play a couple hours of it one night, and I was having a good time. People have compared it to like The Legend of Zelda, like the older style Legend of Zelda games meets Dark Souls, because we have to throw Souls comparisons into anything that is at least a little difficult. But I like the visual style. I like kind of the atmosphere that they've kind of introduced here. And from what I've seen online, it's about 10 to 12 hours. That's about right for like a smaller indie title. It's currently set for $20, that on the Xbox and PC. So really cool to see this indie game doing as well as it has so far in its first week. Oh, and I told you guys I would keep you up to date on the Playdate, and yesterday it looks like pre-orders did open up, and I noticed it even started to trend on Twitter, which is a little surprising to look over and see Playdate with like tens of thousands of tweets around it, but it's kind of cool to see so many people interested, and I guess what this handheld is able to do with the crank on the side. Anyway, the pre-orders are up, and the way they're going to do this is they're not going to close pre-orders after they get so many. They're just going to leave them open and go with a first come, first served basis as they're able to fill those orders. So if you're interested in it, I would go take a look on their website. They even have a package that has like a purple case. So obviously I got that one. Yeah, I did order it. We're going to do a video around it. We'll open it up and check it out and see how a little handheld with a crank does nowadays. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that NVMe slot in the PlayStation 5. It's something people have been asking to be able to use for a while, considering the PS5 doesn't exactly have a ton of storage to go around. And we know Microsoft launched the Xbox Series with a little storage expansion card. Doesn't give you the same amount of options that we have with the PS5 now with the bunch of NVMe drives out there, but it does add that extra convenience factor, which is important to a lot of people. But we do finally have updates rolling out now for people who are in the beta program for these different firmware, so keep that in mind if you are going to do this. There, I'm sure, is risk involved when it comes to your PS5 crashing or issues with firmware, as Sony is doing this to kind of test things out a bit further. But they did put out a bunch of information as to which NVMe drives we can use, and we can see that over on their website here. We already know the form factor, of course, M.2. They did go over just all of the different form factors you can use, including the 2230, 4260, etc. there. PCIe Gen 4 M.2 NVMe SSD. They went over the capacities, 250 gigabytes up to 4 terabytes, which we'll get into the pricing there. That'll be fun. And then the most important thing, which is surprising, has to do with the dimensions, because they do kind of talk about heat sinks here more than I thought they would. Like, it's very much implied that you want to have a heatsink on the NVMe drive that you choose for the PS5. So you want to keep kind of the height factor in mind here when it comes to attaching a heatsink, because it does have to close up, right? With that slot that it has to screw back in. And then we also have the minimum sequential read speed at 5,500 megabytes per second. Now, as soon as Sony released all this information, we saw Seagate release their own information around the FireCuda 530 that they themselves say is completely compatible with the PlayStation 5 through a bunch of testing they did in collaboration with Sony. And if we take a look at the product page for that 530, we can see they have a couple of different storage options, starting with the 500 gigabyte model at $150, the 1 terabyte at $255, the 2 terabyte at $515, and the 4 terabyte at, get ready for this, $1,000. That's right, the 4 terabyte model is technically 2 PlayStation 5s. But not to worry on that pricing, since Sony gave us some of these minimum requirements around like speed. A lot of people have gone out and started to kind of look around at different NVMe drives that would meet those specs. And of course, the idea of having a heatsink on there when it comes to the dimensions. And we can see a small list here that was put together on Reddit with the Western Digital SN850. There's even a built-in heatsink version that does meet those spec requirements, so you could technically pick that up and use it. The Samsung 980 Pro, and then the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus. Very important to note, it has to be the Plus variant, not the non-Plus. That one does not meet the requirements. I did order the 980 Pro. I wanted to go with something a little different than the FireCuda so we could try out some of these other NVMe drives in the PlayStation 5. So I also ordered a third-party heatsink that I'll attempt to attach, and we'll see if it all fits together. Right now, I'm really just waiting for Sony to send the email saying I can get into the beta program to try out the firmware. So hint, hint, Sony, send me that email. But I am excited to finally get to use that NVMe slot in my PlayStation 5. It's been a long time coming, like I said, since launch at this point. And a lot of people now are kind of looking around and saying, all right, which one would I prefer? The Xbox, I guess, method of just having a card that you drop in, or the PlayStation 5 method where you get to choose the NVMe drive. Yes, it's a bit more work and a bit more involved, but you at least have more choice. And over time, of course, those prices most likely will go down as more and more companies get involved and technology continues to advance and all of this. I will say, I think looking at the Xbox side of thing with that card, it's probably better for the mom or the dad that walk into a store, they buy the Xbox, the Series S, or whatever they get, and then they go, okay, how do we expand the storage? And you just buy a branded card. I'm a little surprised Sony didn't do a branded NVMe drive through a collaboration with like a Seagate or a Western Digital, but this is kind of where we are now. It's just a little more work when it comes to unscrewing, the screw on the PS5 and dropping the drive in. I'm kind of curious what happens after that when it comes to actually formatting the drive and moving things around and how easy all of that is. So, like I said, once I get into the beta program, we'll do a whole video on it and we'll go ahead and test and see how things go. Oh, and there was one other part with this update that I thought was kind of interesting. Has to do with 3D audio now being available on your TV speakers. And apparently they're going to use the DualSense to kind of survey the room, I guess, with that microphone to kind of set everything up. So that'll be kind of cool to test out as well. Next up, let's talk about a first-party game from Microsoft on the Xbox that is leaving Game Pass. This seemed to surprise some people online a bit, but it's not really new in the racing genre. Let's head over here to Twitter, where this is from Forza Motorsport saying, on September 15th, 2021, Forza Motorsport 7 will reach end-of-life status. This means that the game and its DLC will no longer be available to purchase. For more info, check out our latest blog post. They go on a bit further to clarify, saying, if you own the game, keep driving after end of life in September, Xbox Game Pass drivers who purchase DLC, you'll receive a token for Forza Motorsport 7. All right, so couple things here. You won't lose access to the game after end of life in September. You'll still be able to re-download it and play it and all of this if it's in your purchases library. It's just going to be removed from the store and removed from Game Pass. And this is something that we tend to see with racing games a lot because it comes down to the licensing and kind of the agreements they have in place with the different car manufacturers and even at times music. That does play into things there. And we see racing games get delisted all the time, all the time. So the weird thing with this though, is that typically we'd have a new Forza Motorsport game out and we wouldn't really care as much, but this is still the newest simulation Forza game. We do have Horizon 5 coming up here in November and I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. It's just odd because Forza Motorsport 8 or just Forza Motorsport is taking a bit longer and it's kind of off their normal schedule because they are moving that game to their newer engine that's going to take advantage of the Xbox Series with ray tracing and all these extra things that they're building it out for, more for the future of Forza and apparently maybe even Fable, so something to keep in mind there. But that just kind of threw everything out of whack here when it comes to their release timings. So yeah, it's going to be kind of strange, the idea of not having that in Game Pass to go check out when we get closer to Forza Motorsport, I guess, next year. But if you're curious about picking this one up just for preservation's sake, it's $10 on the Microsoft Store now, and they even have the deluxe and ultimate version for $10 more or something. This is, once again, another reason for physical media to still exist, because technically you could go to a GameStop or a Best Buy, I'm sure, and even find this game on store shelves even after it's delisted from the digital store. Next up, let's talk about Capcom and their latest financial report. Now, this is for their previous quarter that ended June 30th, so that'd be April, May, and June. That does cover Resident Evil Village's release. Let's head over here to Capcom's site. Where they say, this quarter, Capcom's core digital contents business drove business results through its continued pursuit of digital sales growth, including a major new release in its flagship series, Resident Evil Village, and series of catalog titles such as Monster Hunter Rise. Further, sales volume for its home video games were 13.3 million units. That's up 44.6% year over year. As a result, Capcom achieved its highest net sales as well as highest levels of all profit items for a first quarter. They go on to say net sales are up 104.1% and operating income is up 120.4% year over year. This is massive for Capcom, who I said before is just releasing hit after hit after hit, and they are rolling on. Certainly in much better shape than they were before Monster Hunter World came out. I mean, that really pushed Monster Hunter into the real mainstream status. I mean, it was popular before, but now it's Monster Hunter World is their best-selling game, and then here comes Monster Hunter Rise continuing to sell, and then Resident Evil Village, over 4.5 million units sold now, and we, of course, hear that there's going to probably be another Street Fighter game because that was part of the Capcom leaks. We'll see if they can maybe improve on sales from Street Fighter 5. That'll be interesting to see there. But then we hear that there is a Resident Evil 4 remake that's in development, and we know Monster Hunter Rise is going to head to PC next year. So, there's still a lot to come for Capcom, and I mean, they're just in probably the best shape they've been in a long time. I mean, seriously, before Monster Hunter World came out, there were talks about them maybe being acquired by another company. I think Microsoft was brought up quite a bit as a company, and I know we talk about that a lot. Microsoft's going to buy this company or that company. Those were legitimate rumors going around there for a little while. So I'm happy to see Capcom in a great place right now. But now's the time to do Mega Man. Something with Mega Man. Let's get an X9. Let's get Legends 3. You can even bring back Battle Network for all I care right now. Let's just do something with the Blue Bomber. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a big update that's going to be heading to New Pokemon Snap next week. Now, when New Pokemon Snap was first announced, there were a lot of people who enjoyed the original one, who got really excited for it. Then it comes out at the end of April, and for the most part, the reviews were pretty good for it. And I thought that was kind of going to be it, and then they would just move along from it. But no, they're releasing a substantial update. You can see some of the trailer here, and this is going to be launching Tuesday, August 3rd. The new update will have 3 new areas in total, and it's going to add 20 new Pokemon. And you can see some of the Pokemon throughout the trailer. They showed off Snorlax, there's Shroomish, Psyduck, and of course Gyarados, so cool to see that there. And this is great because it's free. They're not even charging for it. I mean, It's Pokemon. Obviously, they could have charged for it. I'm curious if they're going to continue updating this game as they go along, or it's just like an extra thing. Hey, Pokemon Snap, it sold pretty well. It's the anniversary year for Pokemon. Why not continue to release updates to keep this game in the news and keep people interested as we head towards the holidays? And that's probably the smart thing to do here. If they have more updates, continue dropping them as we get closer to the holidays, because then they could have a bunch of Pokemon stuff to sell alongside of merchandise and obviously the anime and other things that are going on for this big anniversary for Pokemon. That could lead into the big release in January for Arceus. So exciting stuff here for Pokemon Snap fans. Make sure you check that one out next week. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, the Xbox Series went with branded storage cards and the PS5 went with NVMe drives from third parties for their expandable storage. Each method has their pros and cons, but which strategy do you prefer? 44% said Xbox Series storage card, and then 56% said PS5 NVMe drive. And I kind of expected that, mostly because I'm sure many of you who are watching this have no problem necessarily popping a side panel off and unscrewing it and dropping it in. But I do wonder if the convenience factor of the Xbox Series storage cards might be enough for people to say, I think that's a bit better, especially if you're someone who just needs more storage for your system and doesn't have to think about, okay, what do I have to like drop this in? I gotta unscrew it, make sure it's the right heat sinks. Like there is a lot that goes into there for like a mom or a dad to kind of take into account. And obviously the Xbox Series storage card is hot swappable. You can just pop it out. So yes, there are pros and cons to either one, and I'm just gonna have to see how this turns out with the PS5 and that Samsung 980 when I finally get invited to the beta. Sony, come on. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Still I Rise saying, a few days ago on Sony's website, they said Returnal was a mega hit. The game sold 560,000 copies. I wonder what their sales expectations were for this game. I don't think they were very high, and Housemarque isn't exactly out there lighting the world on fire when it comes to sales for their games. Certainly not one they put out at $70. They're doing things like, like Resogun. These aren't games that are out there front and center, like trying to sell a system like we had here with Returnal. So I feel like Sony looked at it and said, wow, that's a lot better than anything else that Housemarque has made, and we were able to sell it at $70. So what can they do if we bring them in, give them a bigger budget, and kind of go from here as we roll along through the PlayStation 5 generation? Because Housemarque's going to make another game for the PS5, and we'll see how they continue to evolve overall with their studio. So exciting stuff there. And I'm happy that at least Sony looked at that and had it within their expectations, and they're willing to then pick up Housemarque and bring them in. Now we can see what they can really do. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the NVMe slot in the PS5 finally being activated? Are you already shopping around for NVMe drives? And have you tried it out in that beta program yet? Also, what about Forza Motorsport 7 being delisted? And what about new Pokemon Snap? Are you excited for that update coming next week? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.